Stripes. I'm Jenny Guillory.
And I'm Megan Moran. And we'll start tonight with the result of our play from the last episode. 4th and 10 at the B20. A99's field goal attempt is partially blocked behind the line of scrimmage and recovered by A5 and the B25 and advanced to the B10. A55 is flagged for holding at the B20. What is the foul, if any? What is the enforcement, if any? Down and distance? What is the clock status in high school? College? If B declines, it is a first down for A, so B will accept the foul because the spot of the foul is the same as the previous spot. It will be enforced from the 20 and will be 4th and 20 from the B30. Game clock on the snap. Play clock is at the 25.
We've reached another round number milestone. We're at episode 25. As you've noticed, we're celebrating tonight by doing something a little bit different.
That's right. Tonight, our wives are going to take over the show, asking us questions and discussing the officiating experience from their perspectives as well. And we recognize and appreciate the sacrifices they make so that we can do this. And ladies, we're happy to have you so much. I think I speak on behalf of all officials that it's the role at home that makes this worthwhile. It's everything that you all do to support us in what we do as we take this journey and officiate. So thank you both.
I'll echo Michael. Obviously, we know it's a big time commitment for you. Obviously, it's a time commitment from our perspective, but obviously it is for both of you as well. I mean, I can think this being our first weekend, Michael and I were gone Friday night for a game. Saturday, we both did scrimmages. And it's a big time commitment for everybody involved. So we appreciate that. And we're grateful that you're joining us tonight as well.
We've got some questions to ask both of you, and hopefully that'll spark some discussion as well. So I think
do we have to tell the truth?
Do you have to tell the truth?
The whole truth.
Okay, I will tell.
We're not actually under oath currently, so yeah.
For those of you that don't know, Jenny, what do? You want to tell the audience what you're doing?
Well, Ryan and I are both attorneys. I work as an administrative law judge, so I'm familiar with witnesses being sworn in and having to testify under penalty of perjury. So that is not occurring tonight, but maybe in the future.
Hopefully nobody on this show.
You never know.
Okay, and Meg, can you share with us what you do as well?
Well, I'm actually just a stay-at-home mom to the 5 wonderful children we've been blessed with. But on occasion, I do substitute teach at Our Lady of Mount Carmel. And then I'm also able to volunteer at my children's school whenever they need volunteers.
That's fantastic. And I don't think just is really the right word with 5 kids and
not at all,
and Michael.
Not at all.
And
that's
Michael
is six
right.
and a half.
Michael is my 6th child.
That's single mom of 6. That is the correct
Yes.
job description. Yes.
Well, again, thank you both for being here. And we're really excited for this and looking forward to it.
First question, how do each of you balance your work, family, and officiating?
Not very well. We have, I'll speak on our end. We have a big dry erase board that we have as our massive calendar. It's like 2 feet by 3 feet. And the rule is it has to be on the board. So already this year, that rule's been broken. There were things that were not on the board. So when I first started doing this, there was a lot of, you get the call to go to this place or do this practice or scrimmage or game or whatever. And you say yes. And then you go, crap, I got to tell Meg. And you're trying to back your way into that. And, being up front is always better. But I think just the easiest thing is just organizing it with a board. And you just have to be on the same page. Meg kind of knows that, thankfully, when August gets here, it's kind of getting into football season. But that doesn't excuse me from, not clearly intending my plans. Actually, I'll tell this story real quick. I worked a game last year. I was out of state in Michigan. And I told her, I'll see you tomorrow. And I think the kickoff was like 7 o'clock Saturday night. Well, she figured like most games it was a 1 or 2 o'clock kickoff. And she thought when I said see you tomorrow, I'd get in at midnight or 1 a.m. on Sunday. Well, it was a 7 o'clock kick. And so the game took roughly 3 hours, and we spent the night in Michigan. And I say we, the crew. And I came home at like 11 o'clock Sunday. And so the see you tomorrow was not well received at that point. Tried to make it up with some chocolate and flowers. I think that might have scored me half a point. But the overall thing is we got to be on the same page, and I have to tell her what's going on and just write it down.
Yeah, I guess we have a similar system. But I guess as far as balancing work, family, and officiating, some weeks it works better than others, depending on all of that. But obviously for what we're doing, officiating doesn't pay the bills and whatnot. So the real work job is the number one priority. If I have something there, it's I can't take a scrimmage. I'm doing a lot of scrimmages right now, but I had to pick days where I didn't have something going on. But I guess we have a similar system. We both share a Google Calendar with each other. So if I have a scrimmage or a game or a practice, I put it on there. So Jenny can look at the calendar to see when I have something coming up. And the flip side is, if I take something where she has something on the calendar, then I always ask before I commit to something. So it's the same idea as the whiteboard. It's just, I guess the system that we have, it's just communicating, right? It's just two different methods of communicating what's coming up, when we are available, and how you're doing that. But, I guess the third aspect of it is obviously the games and the scrimmages and those kinds of things. I guess I find that portion, when we're at home, easier because I can read a rule book sitting next to Jenny, or, there's nothing special about, reading a rule book or looking at film. I can watch game film on the couch and make comments. I haven't done yet for our high school scrimmage from last week because I'm just been too busy the last few days, but it's something that's easy to do. It doesn't require me to go somewhere to block something out. So yeah, I think it's the same thing. Like, obviously you have to prioritize work and family, and the way to do that with family is just to communicate and to check that, instead of being gone 4 nights out of the week or something, that you're, being fair in doing that and communicating, if you do have something like that comes up.
So I have another question. What is your proudest moment as an official? Your biggest regret?
We make a script for these folks, and Ryan and I had a chance to look it over, but yet somehow we're still stumped by these questions. I'll just peel back the curtain. Last year was a great year for me. I thought I had a lot of fun. I got to work the Indiana High School All-Star Game. That was a blast, just being a part of that. I worked my first sectional final in high school football, so got to go a little deeper in the high school tournament. That was awesome, and then got a playoff game, Division III second round game. So I had a fantastic year last year. I was really lucky, really blessed to do all that. And that started in July and went all the way to November. So it was a long, long season last year. So again, I appreciate Meg putting up with all of it. The biggest regret is you have to miss things. Not have to, you have to make a choice. I know, like, I haven't missed a birthday party fully yet, but I've been late to birthday parties. I know one of my sons, he was in flag football last year, and I missed a lot of his games. I made it to a couple, but I missed a lot. Just you have to make those choices, and especially with a lot of what we do. With family things, trying to do stuff on weekends, you're just trying to try to, again, going back to communicating and balancing that out, but you're having to make those choices. And I can see, as things get further and further, they're growing up and they're starting to want to do more and more. And I want to be there for that. That's the toughest part.
No, I understand. I guess taking in the same order, my proudest moment, it was probably my first varsity game that I worked, because that was in October of 2020, which was our conference played a spring season for COVID.
Oh, right, yeah.
So the following spring, but the teams were able to play out of conference games in the fall. And so I was just on cloud 9 to work a football game, much less in that, environment. Like, it felt, there were maybe 50 people in the stadium, but it felt somewhat normal, to be out on the field and to do that. And I was just, obviously I was on cloud 9 just to finally have my first game that I was out there. So for me, that was a proud moment. But I mean, it's been every step too, right? I mean, this year when I was named to a crew, I mean, it was very exciting. It was something that Michael and I had been, going back and forth on for a while. We were just waiting for it to come out. So once the email came out and we got it, like the first person I talked to was Michael, and
I remember that day. I was pumped.
He was incredibly congratulatory, and I'm very grateful for that. But I mean, it was cool because I told you, Jenny, and then I got to tell Michael, and all was well there. It was a very exciting time. I guess the biggest regret, I mean, obviously it's just spending time with you. It's the family stuff. But we always joke, Michael and JP and I. So Michael and I have talked about this before. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this to you, Jenny, or Meg. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Michael and Meg got married 7 days after Jenny and I got married. So our weddings were literally a week apart. So
no, I did not know that.
And then JP got married in like early October. So the three of us from our high school crew, all of our anniversaries are like just dead smack in the middle of football season. So if there's a way to go back and be like, hey, we're going to be very busy in September and October, it may be something that we could do there. But it is what it is. And but as far as regrets go, I kind of wish I would have started younger. Now, the flip side of that is I just came into a perfect situation just with the people I've met and always worked with JP and Michael, and our journeys have kind of gone, at a comparable pace. And so whenever one of us is doing something new, either somebody else has just done that or we're sort of figuring it out together. So I'm grateful for where I am, as well. But, in hindsight, if I could go back and change something, that might be the one thing there. But, I think one thing you'll notice from both Michael and myself, it's not a call that I made or missed. It's that's not a regret of mine. It's something that you learn from and get better. But I never sit and think, well, 4 years ago I had this game, and if only I would have done this in that scenario. That's not a regret. It's a learning moment at best.
I don't know if either of you still work other sports. I know Ryan really doesn't. Michael, do you still officiate other sports?
Not anymore. No, I used to.
And so I guess the question can be, what made football, I guess, win out over, I know obviously Ryan used to do basketball as well. What made the difference?
So I used to do baseball, and I'm going to quote actually one of our guests on the show, Joe Stafford. One of the things that makes football great is there's a clock. But in all seriousness, I loved baseball. Baseball is the reason I got into football. So I can think back years and years ago. The umpire at my brother's 10-year-old baseball game didn't show up, and I thought, I bet I can do this, and I made it through. Did baseball for about eight years or so, and met, as I just mentioned, Joe Stafford. He got me involved in football, and started doing CYO, and I think I might have mentioned the story before, but I think just doing two sports at once, it was fun, and obviously making extra money was a blast, and you could kind of learn situations kind of between both sports and prepare. But again, as the family grew, it got to be tougher. And Ryan and I know now, the football off season spans from January to July, and baseball starts in February and goes till July or whatever. So the off season of one is the main season of the other, and I really got to like both, but football just kind of won out. And if you want to do those bigger and better things, you've got to spend more time preparing in the off season, and we can probably talk about that later. But it just got to be overwhelming for me personally. So football won.
Yeah, I'm similar. Obviously, as Jenny said, I did basketball that was the first sport I officiated. Actually, it was basketball before I did football. I don't know. I guess as far as the differences, I never broke my arm doing football. So that's one box I can check there. That's a little bit different. I don't know. Basketball is my favorite sport. It's my favorite sport to watch. It's my favorite sport to play. I just never enjoyed officiating it as much as I did football. So if, for lack of a better answer, what's the difference? I enjoy officiating football a lot more than I enjoyed officiating basketball. I don't know the reason for that. I've often joked that it's just because of, basketball is king here in Indiana. Back home in Louisiana, for me, football is king. So maybe it would be different there. I don't know. It's just a mind or a riddle to figure out for myself. But first and foremost, I just enjoyed officiating football more. The second aspect of it is I find football officiating to be much more collaborative and collegial, and people support each other. Whereas in basketball, it was literally cutthroat. I mean, the worst officiating experiences I've had working with other people were all in basketball. I've never had anyone in football I don't even know how to say it. I've been working basketball games where partners I had would say things to coaches during a game about me that I later found out about and that caused me difficulty during the game. And that does not happen in football. Just thinking through our crew, that stuff doesn't happen. Thinking through all the people we work with in the Heartland and the mid-states and that as well, that stuff doesn't happen. People support each other. They're happy for you when you get that next break, that everybody's working for, right? I mean, everybody wants to hit that next step, but, if somebody gets there before me, I'm happy for them, and it just pushes me to work harder for that. Whereas some other sports, in my experience, this is all anecdotal, obviously, but my experience was that basketball was much less supportive and much more you're on your own and cutthroat than football is. So for me, it's just I enjoy it a lot more, and like we've kind of hinted at as well. Between our crew and our group of friends, we're kind of on the same journey, right? It's just a fun process, Michael, I know you've got some D2 game, and you've got some fun things coming up. So I'm happy for you, and I look forward to hearing about that and see how that goes. And every time one of us hits that next step, it's fun. It's fun for me when Michael gets that. It's fun if JP gets it. It's enriching to me as well, and I learn from it.
Speaking of working on getting to the next level, how do you work or prepare yourselves for the upcoming officiating season, both physically and mentally?
Well, physically, we always have this thing on our crew where when one of us is working out, we tend to send a text to try to inspire the others. So Michael will send us these photos of him doing squats or him at the bench. And that's when I say, Ryan, you got to get out there and it's time to hit the weights again. No, but I mean, that does happen. We do that stuff. I'm kidding, but we do that, right? One of us goes for a run.
The curtain has been peeled back tonight, folks. You've seen it all. Yep.
Well, we can cut that if need be, if you don't want me to share that.
No, we can leave it.
But no,
we're
it's
not
a good
cutting that.
It's a good thing for our crew because, if one of us goes for a run, we'll text everybody and be like, hey, it's a good day to do some work. If one of us is weightlifting,
Yep.
it's a good day to do that. And it's inspiring, right? Because it's easy to sit on the couch and be like, I don't feel like it today. But then that text comes in and you're like, I better feel like it. It's because you want to keep up with each other because, it's a crew of us and we want to kind of match each other out there, right? It's... If I can't move down the sideline and Michael's running back and forth and running laps beyond me, then I've got to pull my weight since there's two of us on the sidelines, right? No, but literally, right? I mean, we push each other because each of us, we don't want to be the weak link. So that's the physical aspect, and it's good whether it's your crew or a friend. Have people that you can push each other to go and work out. As far as the mental aspect of it, there are scrimmages in the spring. Michael and I go to those. There are scrimmages
Clinics,
in the summer.
Did a whole episode on clinics.
Yeah, clinics. We've done clinics. I mean, we did college clinics. We've done high school clinics. We get out on the field. We've always said the best preparation. You can read a rule book all day, and you should. It's important, but it's getting out and actually seeing the stuff in action, and especially in the off season when teams are trying new things or putting in new plays, new personnel. That's when some of those screwy things happen. That it's always good to see those, so you're prepared for the season as well. So it's just Michael said it earlier. It is, the season ends in December, and then the off season runs from January to July, and you'd better be doing the physical and the mental work during that time, because once August hits, it's too late.
Yeah, I'd echo the same thing. I mean, texting people. I know there were several of us, trying to lose weight, and hey, I'm down a pound, I'm down 5 pounds, whatever. That was always fun to see. Um, we've got quizzes and questions and stuff that we do. Part of this show, we come up with plays. We come up with a play to start the show. We have a play to end the show. So that's racking our brain to think of this. Just every little thing that you can do. But the important thing too, it is also the off season. I mean, you have to take a break. You can't do football 7 days a week for 52 weeks. It doesn't work. So I during the off season try to make an effort to be more conscious about being around the family and not retreating to my own little huts and hideaways. Meg can attest to how good of a job I do on that. Maybe not very good. But I think as the season gets going, right, I do advocate, hey, 4 or 5 nights a week, think about football, whether you're watching football, right, looking at your rule book, whatever the case may be, or if you're throwing a football, I've got my kids, I can throw a football with my kids. At least I'm thinking about football. But during the off season, make sure you're working time for family and resting your brain. So,
right. Yeah, and just to add one more thing, during the season too, you've got to take a day or so to rest your body, because it is a long haul. Now that we're doing more and more games, I know for me, Jenny knows that if I do my Friday game and then I do a bunch of stuff on Saturday, by Sunday, if I try to step over something, my hamstring's going to cramp or something. So, you've got to take that day off to rest physically as well, just so that you can get back to the grind during the week.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to, if you've been working out during the off season, plan those workouts around your weekends, Fridays and Saturdays. Don't knock Pedialyte. It's a great resource. Everybody should have one in their house.
Right. And if Pedialyte wants to sponsor us, you can email us at learnyourstripes@gmail.com.
Pedialyte would make a great sponsor of the Learn Your Stripes podcast show.
Next question. How has doing this well-edited podcast helped you as an official?
Part of what makes this podcast so great is it's edited so phenomenally on a professional level, and the money we invest in our producer is just incredible.
Yes,
gotta be top 1% of non-paid producers. I think for me, it's I just talked about it, the questions, right? If we're going to put a question on the show, it's a little intimidating to, broadcast the question and say, hey, and come back a few weeks later and say, here's the answer. And right. We have to know our stuff because we're going to say that. And I appreciate the community we have. I think 1 or 2 folks have said, hey, you might have gotten this wrong. Well, they don't say you got it wrong. They said, hey, look at it this way. Nobody's ever lambasted us about it. They say, hey, I might disagree with you. And we take a look and figure it out. And I know we had a listener, James, who emailed us a couple of weeks ago with some questions, and there was some back and forth discussion around those too. And I think we got James in the right direction there too. So thank you, James, for listening. But just being prepared and going over the stuff that we can share the information, because we want to be correct and we don't want to give our wrong information.
Yeah, I mean, it's the podcast, the episodes are, 30 to 40 minutes normally. They're more like an hour or so before it's edited, and all the bad stuff that I screw up gets taken out. But there is a lot of preparation that goes into doing that 30 to 40 minutes, right? We made a joke last week about the 6 episodes we did last year on mechanics. Those 6 episodes were, 40 to 45 minutes each, most likely. I haven't gone back and checked, but there were hours of preparation that went into each one. And that's kind of how it is when we do, an episode on a rule or on a mechanic or something. It's a lot of preparation, and it's helpful for us because we really have to drill down and have to understand it to be able to talk about it. It's sort of that whole old thing, I guess. And Meg, as a teacher, this may make sense to you, but it's the whole thing that, you can read something and think that you understand it, but then when you have to teach it to somebody else, that's when you really are learning it, when you've got to be able to inform somebody else about that topic. And that's what Michael and I are doing here, right? I mean, we're both pretty good at rules. I mean, we tied for first place at the Heartland Collegiate Athletic Conference on the quiz, right? But
I just like to say that Ryan rushed right home to tell me that. So FYI.
well, we got a text telling us that we needed to advertise that. So this is my plug that Michael and I do actually know what we're talking about sometimes.
We might know half of what we figure out. Yep.
If we get the right questions posed to us, we're very good at them.
True.
If we get the wrong ones, then whew. But no, James really sent us some tough questions, and it took a little while going back and forth on that. So again, we appreciate that. But no, I mean, the podcast helps. Number one, we love having guests on. In addition to both of you, just when we have other officials, we get to hear ways that they prepare, ways that they attack certain situations. But it makes us sharp on rules and mechanics doing this as well.
Speaking of having guests on your show, if you could have any guest on your podcast, who would it be? And why would you want that person as your guest?
Both of you, because you're our wives and we love both of you. Next question.
Nope, doesn't count.
Asked and answered, Your Honor.
No. Wrong answer.
Sorry, doesn't work.
Dogs are also not a valid answer either. So,
or our children.
This kind of inside the actor studio.
Mm-hmm.
We've had some pretty cool guests on, and I don't want to knock any of them. They've all brought something.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? If I pick one name, it's like I'm shorting other people.
No, I'm not trying. But so I know at our Heartland Clinic we had John Rogaman. He just retired. He'd been in the Big Ten for 20 years, and he had some incredible stories. I think to me, if I could have a dream guy, I mean, we've had all kinds of unique personalities in here that have been all great in their own right and absolutely fun, a blast to talk to. But I'd love to have somebody who, from the Big Ten or I guess that's our footprint. So that's where I would say that, had worked several years in the league, because just the stories they could tell would be incredible. Somebody like John over 2 decades, just the way the game has changed since he entered the league, or even since he started officiating. I think he started officiating back in the 80s. So that would just be so cool to listen to those stories and have them share with our audience.
Yeah, I guess the one for me, if we're just shooting for the stars and whatnot, would be Ed Hockley. He's always been famous just because he was like the first really like ripped official, right? I mean, the guy was just busting out the sleeves on his shirt. But he practices the same type of law that I do. And he's had sort of a pretty, once he retired, he retired, and so, there are some guys who retire and they stick around and they stay fairly active, but, I know he's focused on work and family since then. So for me, it would just be interesting just to have that conversation about, his approach to officiating at the highest level, as well as, balancing that with work and, tips and advice that he might have for that as well. But that would be 1B, whereas 1A again are our wives. So we're glad that we got to check our box for dream guest.
Now that the season is imminent / possibly already started, what is your weekly routine, and have you changed it at all since your past seasons?
Yeah, I mean, I've had to change it just because we're doing more at the college level now. It used to be when I started, I was doing a Friday night game. I'd wake up and do like a freshman or JV game on Saturday. There was a year where I did some flag football on Saturday afternoons. And then sometimes on Sunday, I would do like CYO or some other youth football. Whereas now it is Friday night. We've talked before, especially in our talk with Ross Hayden a couple episodes ago, about how we handle film. So we would do a Friday night game, then we do our Saturday game. We always have the Saturday games film by Sunday, late morning, early afternoon.
Yeah, usually.
So for me, I like to start watching film on Sunday because I don't really want to do anything physical after doing, 2 games, games for 2 days in a row. And then so I'll do college film, I'll do high school film early in the week. And then the rest of the week, I'll just try to get into some rules and mechanics. And then you just start the process over again. I work better in a very strict routine, whereas others might just be, I need to accomplish this. It doesn't really matter what day. I just have to do this before, by a certain time. But I have to be very strict as to how I do that from week to week, and it works for me. My routine might not work for others, though.
And I'd probably be I need to get this done by this time. I think when you don't have a Saturday, Friday and Saturday games, obviously that gives you either, during the off season you have more time to either you're working out, exercising, or studying case plays or rule books. So to me, when the season starts, automatically I go, ooh, I've lost 2 days. And then, like I said, Sunday we're usually spend a lot of family time together, whether we're out here grilling out or maybe we're at my parents or something like that, or at Meg's family's place. Whatever we're doing. So then at that point, it's okay. I've got 4 days now to accomplish what I need to do. So at that point, you start to kind of sacrificing. Okay, I need to look at this film and review that instead of working out, or I need to make sure I get this rule done. And I know, Ryan, you and I do a lot of the pregame for our respective crews, so there's that. You've got to scout teams, and then, like we talked about, officiating doesn't quite pay the bills yet. Hopefully someday it does, but the day job is still part of that too, and you got to figure that out. So
right.
I'll watch film on my lunch break. If that's what you have to do.
So I know you guys sort of answered this question when we asked a different question earlier, but what advice do you have for other officials in balancing their work, family, and officiating life?
Well, I think if there's one thing that we've sort of hinted at, there's not a one size fits all. So you have to know your situation. I think as Jenny said, and I'm fortunate that the type of work that I do, my work schedule can be pretty flexible. Now that means that I could do some football during the day, but then I've got to make up for it by working at night. But I at least have that's a luxury that I have that some people don't have, right? I mean, I'm not tied to 8 to 5 in the office or something like that. So my work approach is different. Everybody's family situation is different, depending on, if you've got kids, if you've got an elderly parent you're caring for, how that plays out. So, my advice would be to figure out the work and family balance first, and then figure out how officiating fits in. And I don't know. Maybe some supervisors wouldn't want to hear that, put more of an emphasis on the officiating part. But I think that if you don't balance those first two, the officiating part's not going to matter, because something's going to happen that's not too good for you in the work and or family realms if you can't figure those two out first. So do that, and then bring in the officiating afterwards and plug that in. As we've talked about, Michael and I both, when you can do the film, when you can work on some quiz questions, when you can look at rules, fit that in around the other two, but the other two have to be working for you to make the officiating aspect work.
I got married, just to have a journey with someone, and that way we could all experience, or both of us experience, I guess, rather, all of the ups and downs of life. And I actually got into football the same year I got married, which, looking back on it, has proved challenging. Not regretful, but just challenging. I think that, like Ryan said, you have to prioritize what's important to you. So if you're a young single guy or gal and you want to officiate football, you can throw caution to the wind and you can work 7 days a week. Go for it, right on. If you're newlywed, starting out, that might have a couple of challenges. If you've got lots of kids like I do, it's just one more thing to add to your big calendar that we talked about at the beginning of the show. Obviously, the thing you're looking for is just that big break. You never know when it's going to happen. And that's the culture that we kind of create in this officiating world of saying yes, right? Always being available. And to some extent, that's true. I know our friend Andrew over at Get Right PT. I'll say this. He was in a middle school game, I think on a Tuesday or Wednesday night. And one of the officials he was working with went down and had a knee injury. And next thing you know, that Friday night, he's working the game on TV. I think his second varsity game he's working on TV. And he just worked a state finals a couple of years ago. So, right place, right time. That's what a lot of this takes. I would say you got to be available, make yourself available, but don't be too eager, right? Not everything always pans itself out, and I have to face the times of where I can't be available to something. I do regret that I'm not available, and I regret that okay, I didn't do this, and that'll never happen again, and that opportunity's gone forever. And then it turns out the next week, hey, there's this other game you can go work or whatever. Okay, and it all works out. It all works itself out. Just be patient. There, that's the message of this. Be patient. Be patient, and you'll get where you need to go.
Yeah, patience is incredibly important for all of this, because it's you can drive yourself crazy if you don't bring a little patience in with this, because it doesn't happen overnight. It's a long road.
Yeah.
Michael.
All right, ladies, we're taking our show back. Now it's our turn. We're going to ask some questions of you two, but hopefully they're not too challenging, and hopefully we don't come off with any sort of regret of our own for asking these questions, as we say. So, Jenny or Meg, from your perspective, what's the hardest aspect for you to deal with when we're busy during the season? And then what's the part that you enjoy for the officiating piece?
Well, I would say the hardest thing would be just getting the kids in bed. I know it might seem trivial to some, but we have this bedtime routine that we do with them all. And when Michael's not here, it throws some of them off. In fact, one of our sons almost refuses to fall asleep until Daddy has done the whole bedtime routine with him. And so, first time he comes down and says, "Hey, I can't fall asleep," I start to get "Hey, it'll be okay. Daddy won't be home till after you're asleep. Just try to go to sleep." And this will go on for a little while. But so I'd say that's the hardest thing. And then I would say I do enjoy the fact that I have a football official for a husband, because I can then look to him during a football game that I'm watching and say, "Hey, why was this call made?" Or sometimes I'll say, "Hey, I think this should have been called. Why wasn't it?" So I do like that part. I also keep telling him that I can't wait for the day when he does get to do some Division I college football, and I get to go to a bowl game that he's officiating at, or that I get to yell at him from the stands. That too. So
I'm going to kind of steal part of your answer as far as what parts of officiating of Ryan officiating do I enjoy, because as someone who is not necessarily have any background in really knowing anything about football at all. I feel like I learned things through Ryan's involvement. If we watch football on TV, I will also ask probably really stupid questions, and he will answer them for me. But I also find that, and I guess this is just me being, again, the one who listens to all these episodes and edits them, is that I've learned things from the podcast too, just from listening to you guys. So, awesome. I don't know how much of that I've actually retained, but I have learned definitely some things. As far as the hardest aspect for me, when Ryan's busy, obviously, it's a little different for us. We don't have kids, so, we don't have the potential stressors that come along, like you were talking about, kids wanting to go to bed when dad is home. I think for us, it's, for me, it's I kind of, work in a pretty, not isolating job, but a job where it's definitely possible for me to go through the whole day without speaking to anyone. And which is fine, but I know Ryan knew this too, because also when this kind of came up during when I was still working at home for COVID, but he had gone back to work. That I would be oh, I haven't spoken to a human all day. My husband doesn't get home until 1 a.m. So I haven't spoken to any humans at all. So so that can be tough sometimes, because I do like to speak to humans.
All right. So you may have both covered this. Obviously, there's not there's times where we can't really fix the not being home part. That's just part of the aspect of this. But, aside from that, when we are, or even if we are away and could do something, are there any things that you've thought of, or have often thought of that we could do that might make your lives easier for during the season? Again, knowing there's times where we're just going for hours and hours and hours at a time, or half days, full days, and all that.
I mean, I don't mean to say that you already kind of do it, but I know that, for Ryan's part, he does work really hard on, I guess, domestic things when he is available. So I appreciate that. And I guess that for anyone who's listening, it's kind of a sharing the burden of household things that need to get done, and cooking and laundry and things like that. And it's much more difficult when officiating is going on, for you to do that, and I understand that. But for example, like tonight, you busted to get the lawn mowed, because this is maybe your only free night this week, I think. So I think that's it's appreciated.
Well, I would say a lot of times my husband will bring home ice cream, which that always helps after games. But obviously, it can't always happen when he gets home, midnight, 1 a.m. But yeah, I would second what Jenny says. Just helping out at home, doing what he can while he's there. For instance, when one of our kids does get up in the middle of the night, he always takes care of it so that I can get sleep. Because he always mentions, if I'm not at my best, then I can't take care of the kids. And if I can't take care of the kids, then it's on him. And it's just a whole thing.
All right, time for the tough question, because I know this has been burning in your brains. Is there a rule or any sort of question about equipment or the field that you just always wondered about that we can talk about?
I can't say that I have one, because I've been watching football since I could probably crawl. I was drugged to all my big brother's football games in the snow and the rain. Throughout college, that's kind of how Michael and I met. And now obviously I continue to watch it with him, and our sons are starting to get involved as well. So, but off the top of my head, I can't think of one.
I am just going to throw out there, we are Purdue co-ed flag football champions of 2010. So
Nice.
Yes, we are.
That is how we met. We kind of met through our dorms and playing flag football. So football's been a part of our lives. Well, Jenny, what's your burning question about football?
What is my burning question? I feel like since I just kind of ramble, like I ask all my dumb questions when we're watching football. Like I feel like, if we're watching, like, because my husband cannot get enough of all of the varieties of football. So we have our Canadian football, what's the new one that just started? Was it USFL? Is that it? USFL, yeah. Canadian football.
That was this year,
yeah. So
XFL,
often I will find
Alliance,
myself asking questions about, please explain the differences between Canadian and American rules. Thank you.
For full disclosure, Michael and I and our crew, we belong to this daily email for high school officials here in Indiana, where they'll send out a question or a play scenario one day, and the next day they send you the answer. And so the answer today from Friday's question blew our minds. And again, Michael and I are pretty darn good with rules.
I still haven't picked my jaw up off the floor yet.
Even for us, like, to how they get to this question and this enforcement, it blew our minds. So it's like we spend a lot of time doing this, and we still have rules that come up that we can't explain, and you just don't think that that's right. So that's just how this game goes. There's things that don't make sense, and we are always learning. We are always learning new stuff too as we go. Maybe the most important question here would be, if you have one, what is your favorite episode of Learn Your Stripes? Or an alternative would be if you could pick a topic for us to discuss in an episode, right? So not necessarily a past episode, but a topic that you're like, hey, this would be a good thing for you to discuss. What would that be?
Well, I mean, I gotta say, I don't think I have a specific one that would be, but as far as like, I just feel like, and I know this is the goal is, anyone's where you kind of have a guest and somebody who's kind of got an interesting, different perspective. Like, I think those are fun to listen to because you just really don't know, sometimes you have no idea what anyone's going to say. And it's like, it just kind of keeps it, fresh, I guess. Not to say that listening to the two of you isn't fun, but it is interesting every time I kind of go into one of your episodes that has a guest or two guests. You never know what's going to happen. And I think that can be interesting. It's like, and I think, yeah, so I found that those are probably more fun for me to listen to, I guess. I don't know.
So the good ones are the ones that have the two of us on the least, is what you're saying.
Correct. Yeah. Get off.
Our audience might.
That's what I heard.
I think the audience probably generally agrees.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. I have yet to listen to one of your podcasts.
That's entirely fair. Is there some aspect of football that if we did have an episode about that you would find interesting? It doesn't necessarily mean you would have to listen to it, but that you think would be interesting for us to discuss. I'm not saying that we run out of ideas sometimes, but sometimes we can use a little help. And if not, then Michael and I will put our heads together too and come up with a great topic for our next episode.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be able to come up with one afterwards. So, I'll just email it to you guys.
No, that's fine.
At learnyourstripes@gmail.com. Yes, please use the email address.
All right. Well, I really want to thank you both once again for being here. I know this is different and unusual, but that's what we were hoping for. And we're both very fortunate for what you do for us during the season and outside of the season, just in our marriages as well. So we're grateful that you support us in what we do. We're grateful that you were willing to jump into being on this podcast that's about football officiating.
I just want to take a minute too and echo Ryan's sentiments. I mean, Jenny, it's obviously been great getting to know you too, and obviously I hear wonderful things from Ryan. But all the credit has to go for me. All the credit goes to Meg. Just putting up with is the word that is the only word I can think of right now, but it's not true. She is happy for me every time I tell her, hey, I got this assignment, or I got to do this opportunity, or I got to meet these people. She's always excited, and she's always the first one I want to tell. And she can tell all the work that I put in during the off season, and she's just always encouraging me, and I appreciate it. So, honey, I love you and thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us once again for this episode of Learn Your Stripes. And as always, we will leave you with a play to consider.
It is 3rd and 9 from the B40. A12 throws a pass to A80. Prior to the pass arriving, B23 pulls on A80's jersey and breaks his stride. The pass falls incomplete, and B10 launches at A80's head. In frustration, A88 retaliates by punching B10 in the head. What foul or fouls do you have? What is the enforcement? What is the game clock and play clock status?
Ryan and Michael will discuss that play at the start of the next episode. In the meantime, if you would like to let them know what your ruling would be, or if you have any questions or feel that we made a mistake, or want to tell them anything else, or just send memes, please email them at learnyourstripes@gmail.com. You could also contact them also at learnyourstripes@gmail.com if you are interested in sponsoring an episode or advertising on the show. You can find Learn Your Stripes on your app of choice or obtain episodes at learnyourstripespodcast.com. Please also follow us on Facebook at Learn Your Stripes Podcast, on Instagram at Learn Your Stripes Podcast, and on Twitter at LYS_podcast. If you enjoy our podcast, please tell your friends and rate it 5 stars on your app of choice and leave a review. We would very much appreciate it. Michael and Ryan will see you back here in a few weeks. In the meantime, keep learning your stripes.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you both, and thank you, everyone.